Good morning, my dear students. Today we will start chapter number 7, the Cholas. Students, according to our reduced syllabus, from this chapter we have to do inscriptions, Brideshwara temple, from administration Raja Rajavan, Rajendra Chola. So, we start with our first topic, inscriptions. The main source of information for the history of the Chola period is large number of inscriptions of that period. Raja Rajavan conceived the ideas of prefixing to his inscription. These inscriptions are in the form of copper plate grants, stone inscriptions, and inscriptions made on the walls and pillars of temples. Please underline these lines. One copper plate inscriptions contains 31 copper sheets. These plates are written in Sanskrit and Tamil. They record a grant made to a temple by Rajendra Chola I. The inscriptions provide the following information about the Cholas. They tell us about the Chola administration. They also record gifts and endowments to temples and brahmanas. Copper plates inscriptions are the records of grants of village, plots of land and other privileges to individuals or instructions by the Cholas. They inform us about the construction of a temple or the settings up of a new image of deity. Some inscriptions contain royal orders on taxation and land revenue. Inscriptions on temple walls serve the purpose of public registration such as the records of sales, mortgage or other forms of transfers. Our next source is the Brideshwara temple. The Cholas built a number of temples. The gateway of the Brideshwara temple was called Gopuram. The main shrine was known as the Garbhagriha. The mandapa or the audience hall was a place where people gathered for prayer. It was built in front of the main shrine. The chief features of Chola temples are their massive vimanas or towers, or spacious courtyards. The best example of Chola temple is Brideshwara, also known as Raja Rajeshwara temple. This temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. It is located at Thanjavur and was built by Chola king Raja Raja I. The main structure of the temple has a great vimana or tower which rises to a height of 190 feet. It is crowned by massive dome consisting of single block of stone 25 feet high and weighing about 80 tons. This temple is the finest monument of splendid period of South Indian history and the most beautiful specimen of Tamil architecture. The temple has been declared as a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO. Our next topic is Raja Raja I. Raja Raja I was a brilliant general in the many directions. He attacked the kingdoms of Pandyas and the Cheras, as well as parts of Mysore. He annexed parts of Deccan. He was aware of the importance of the controlling the sea. He decided to show his strength along the coast of South India. So he took the naval expedition and attacked both Sri Lanka and Maldives Islands. He built the Raja Rajeshwara temple of Lord Shiva at Thanjavur. On the walls of this temple are inscribed the main work of Raja Raja I. Rajendra Chola succeeded his father Raja Raja I. He continued his father's policies. He invaded and annexed the whole island of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was not able to free herself from Chola Empire for another 50 years. Once his armies marched up to east coast of India through Odisha. and up to the Ganga river. Rajendra Chola himself led the army up to the Godavari, and thereafter his generals took charge of the army. The Cholas' army defeated Mahipur. After this victory, he adopted the title of Gangaikonda and built a new capital called Gangaikonda Cholapuram. Underline these two words, Gangaikonda and Gangaikonda Cholapuram. He built magnificent palaces and beautiful temples at his new capital Gangaikonda Cholapuram. Next topic is Chola administration. The king was the pivot of administration and all the authorities rested in his hands. There are three types of governments, bache. First is central government, second is provincial government, and third is local self-government. Central government. The king was the most important person in the Chola administration, but he had council of ministers to advise him. He often went on tours in order to keep a check on the administration. The officers paid by giving them assignments in revenue bearing lands. The central government looked after external defense, internal peace, and ordered promotion of general prosperity and cultural progress of the empire. Next one is provincial government. The Chola Empire was divided into mandalam or provinces. These further divided into Velanadu and Nadu. Next topic is local self-government. The Cholas are good administrators. They believed in local self-government. These villages had three types of village assemblies, namely the Ur, the Sabha, the Nagaram. The Ur was the common type of assembly of the villages where land was held by all classes of people who were members of the local assembly. The Sabha was an exclusively Brahmin assembly of the villages where all the land belonged to the Brahmins. The third one is the Nagaram was an assembly of the merchants. The temples in the Chola kingdom was center of the social activity. It was not only a place of worship but was also place where people gathered together. The temples used to take care of the welfare of its workers by providing food, clothing, and housing facilities, and by arranging proper education and establishing hospitals. The temple was also a center for education. The priests of the temple were the local teachers as there were no separate schools. The schools were housed in the temple courtyard. The students learned their lessons in two languages, Sanskrit and Tamil. Next topic is the revenue. The revenue of the Chola kingdom came from taxes. Taxes are taxes on land and taxes on the produce of the land. Third one is tax on a trade. Next topic is Chola's art. The art of making stones and metal images had made rapid progress under this rule. The Cholas excelled in making images of god and goddesses. The bronze image of Lord Shiva as a Nataraj, Lord of Dance, is an excellent work of art. Revise this topic carefully. If you have any doubt, you can message me. Thank you.